Previously on Part 1, the pastor's prayer room wasn't for prayer. In the quiet, sun-bleached town of Kimbere, a pastor named Daniel Grace rose like a holy flame. Charismatic, cloaked in gold-trimmed robes, and worshipped by many, he offered what no other man dared, a guaranteed place in heaven. For the broken and desperate, his heavenly certificates were divine mercy, until it became clear they came at a hidden cost. Mary Collins, a young seamstress with a dying mother and no money, accepted the pastor's offer. One night in the prayer room was all he asked, for cleansing, he said. But what truly happened inside those walls shattered Mary's innocence and exposed a web of spiritual exploitation and manipulation that reached deep into the church's foundation. With the help of her friend Lucy and a scarred survivor named Agnes, Mary uncovered Daniel's dark ritual and a black book filled with the names of women marked by numbered certificates, women who began disappearing or dying mysteriously. Her own mother's number was next. They set fire to the lie. The church burned. Pastor Daniel was arrested. The town began to heal. But just as Mary began to breathe again, a man handed her an envelope in the street. Inside it was a certificate. Untouched by the fire, marked number 1 with her mother's name. On the back, a single message: heaven never forgets its debts. Now let's move into part 2 properly. Are you ready? Let's do this. The fire was months ago, but sometimes Mary still smelled the smoke. It lived in the folds of her dreams, curling under her pillow, whispering through the hem of her skirt. Her mother said it was memory. Mary thought it was something else, something that never really left Kimbere. They now lived in a small fishing village 2 towns over, where no one knew their names and the church bells didn't ring so loud. Mary had started stitching again, taking quiet joy in hemming wrapper skirts for pregnant women and wedding blouses for shy young girls. Her mother, Grace, sat mostly by the window these days, watching the waves roll in and out, like she was waiting for something to come out of the sea. Peace had a price, and Mary was paying it in silence. She rarely spoke of the fire, of Pastor Daniel, or the prayer room. Lucy still wrote to her, long letters filled with bright gossip and gentle reminders to live. Lucy had moved to the city, working with a women's group focused on post-trauma recovery. Mary read every letter, but replied to few. She didn't know how to say what haunted her most, that she didn't regret burning the black book, but sometimes she missed the girl she was before she touched it. Before she became what the fire left behind. It was a Tuesday when the envelope arrived. No stamp. No sender. Just a plain white paper pressed between her door and the frame. Inside, folded neatly, was a photograph of Agnes, eyes closed, wrists bound, slumped against a wall Mary didn't recognize. Beneath the photo, a single line handwritten in red ink: number 1 was never yours to carry. The words felt like ash on her tongue. She flipped the photo over. No date. No mark. Just one faint smear of what looked like candle wax on the edge. Her knees buckled slightly. Her mother, who hadn't spoken a full sentence in days, turned from the window and whispered, "It's starting again, isn't it?" Mary couldn't answer. She couldn't even cry. The ocean outside looked calm, but the wind had changed. Peace, she realized, had never been real. It was just the space between storms. And something, no, someone, was coming. Again. The stew pot hissed as palm oil met hot metal, sending up curls of smoke that danced through the thatched roof. Mary stood beside Mama Chitty and 2 other women in the communal cooking hut, rhythmically slicing scent leaves into thin ribbons. The widow's memorial feast was later that evening, and Mary had come early to help. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind flickered. She had buried the photo of Agnes beneath a pile of firewood, but her thoughts wouldn't leave it alone. "Did you people hear?" one woman whispered, leaning close over the steaming pot. "That boy in Obioma couldn't walk. Then this new prophet, Brother Ezra, they call him, he just breathed on the boy. Now the child runs." The others clucked in awe, except Mary, who froze mid-cut. She tried to pretend the name meant nothing, but her throat tightened. The women moved on to other topics, but Mary's world tilted slightly. Brother Ezra. It sounded like a lie dressed in scripture. When she returned home, her mother was humming. Not a song, just a slow, broken vibration that came from somewhere deep inside her chest. Mary paused at the doorway, watching. The air in the room felt thicker than it had that morning. On the edge of her mother's lap sat a small, leather-bound book, dust gathering in its creases. She hadn't seen it before. "Mama, what's that?" she asked gently. Grace blinked slowly and said, "Daniel's second door." Mary's stomach dropped. She stepped forward and reached for it, her fingers brushing the old leather. It smelled of mold and burnt paper. She flipped it open. It wasn't a Bible, it was full of names, numbers, prayers written in reverse, and strange sketches of circles within circles. One page bore the faint imprint of a hand, burned into the paper. That night, a letter came from Lucy. Mary unfolded it by lantern light. It was short. No jokes, no gossip. Just one line, "I've started dreaming of the prayer room again. But it's not the same. This time, there's something in it with me." Mary reread it 3 times. Then, with the black book resting beside her pillow and Lucy's words burning behind her eyes, she whispered into the dark, "I think we opened something we didn't finish." The market smelled of ripe bananas, fish oil, and the sweat of women who'd been bargaining since sunrise. Mary walked between the stalls, ignoring the vendors' calls. She wasn't shopping, she was watching. A rumor had reached her from a bread seller the day before: Agnes now lives behind the abandoned shrine, near the cashew trees. But her mind is broken, oh. She talks to ghosts. Mary had held her breath. Agnes had vanished after the fire, after she helped expose Pastor Daniel's secrets. And now she was here, mad and hidden. Mary needed to see for herself. She paused to buy groundnuts from a teenage boy who pointed her toward a cracked path behind the market. Her skirt clung to her knees as she moved past dry shrubs and rocks until she reached the old shrine, collapsed, roofless, the carved idol half swallowed by vines. A hut leaned behind it, smoke curling from a crooked hole in the roof. Mary knocked softly on the wood. No answer. She called out. Nothing. She pushed the door open. Agnes sat in a corner, cross-legged, head bowed, drawing circles in the dirt with her finger. She looked smaller, like something had been carved out of her. Her hair was uncombed, her eyes sunken. "Agnes," Mary said, kneeling. The older woman didn't look up. "He's in the wind now," she whispered. "The fire couldn't hold him. The book lied." Mary's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" she asked. Agnes looked up slowly, her voice thin. "The prayer room wasn't his only altar. You burned the church. But you didn't burn the door." She pointed to the floor. Mary followed her gaze. There were marks drawn in ash. Concentric circles, a spiral etched in the middle. It was the same as in the second book. "It's called the second door," Agnes said. "He used us to open it a little. But someone has to finish it. That's you. That's why he marked you number 1. Mary stumbled backward. Her hand trembled. "It's over, Agnes." Agnes shook her head, slow and sorrowful. "If it were over, you wouldn't still hear his footsteps at night." Mary left with the air thick in her throat. The wind picked up as she passed the shrine, rustling dry leaves like whispered warnings. In her bag, the second book seemed heavier. That night, Mary couldn't sleep. She sat by her mother's side as Grace hummed the same unending vibration. In the low light, the black book flipped open on its own. A page she hadn't seen before. This one had no names, just numbers. A list, starting from 1. Her name was still there. And under it, was number 2. Blank. She stared at it for a long time. Then a breath, soft and warm, brushed the back of her neck. Mary didn't turn. She knew. Agnes had been right. The door had only opened halfway. The village choir gathered at dusk beneath a neem tree, their voices rising like dust into the violet sky. Mary sat among them on a low wooden bench, not to sing but to listen. One of the older women had begged her to come, hoping music might soften her spirit. So she came, palms folded, eyes downcast. The choir sang of rivers that cleanse, of mercy that waits, of a God who leaves no one behind. But each note twisted in her chest. Behind the harmonies, she thought she heard another sound, something lower, something circling. Her mother had stopped humming. Now she only stared, wide-eyed, into corners of the house no one else dared look. And last night, Lucy had called from the city for the first time in weeks. "I can't sleep anymore," she whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, the prayer room is back. But the walls are covered in salt. And something is growing inside it. I saw a face. It wasn't Daniel's." Mary left the choir early and traveled before dawn, following a set of directions she prayed were false. A woman at the market, one with silver rings and too many secrets, told her where to find the new altar. "It's not a church," she'd said. "It's older than that. But they gather there. They sing with no instruments. They light fire with no matches." Mary reached the edge of a broken monastery by midday, buried deep in the forest, its columns cracked and leaning like tired men. Shadows clung to the stone like skin. She crept inside and hid behind a pillar. What she saw stole the breath from her lungs, a wide circular space lit only by candles shaped like eyes, their flames flickering red. In the center stood Brother Ezra, barefoot, arms raised, his tunic soaked in what looked like oil. His voice was calm, reverent. He spoke of doors, not salvation. Of chosen vessels, not repentance. Of Mary. By name. Then, the worst of it. Her mother. Grace was kneeling beside him, head bowed, lips moving in silent chant. Mary almost screamed. She clenched her jaw so hard it hurt. Grace wasn't a prisoner. She was willing. "We cannot call him back without the one he marked," Ezra said. "She bears number 1, and her blood is the bridge." Mary fled before they could sense her. Outside, her vision blurred. The trees bent as if to shield her escape. Her body moved, but her mind remained frozen in the circle. That night, Lucy called again. "I had another dream," she said, voice trembling. "You were there. You were in the center. They were chanting, and the ground opened. But your mother smiled through the whole thing." Mary whispered, "I saw it too." Then she opened the second book again. The list had changed. Number 2 now read, "Pending." Mary was sweeping the compound when she noticed the ash. Thin and gray, it drifted from the sky like dying butterflies, even though no one nearby was burning wood. She paused, staring at her palm where a flake had landed, and for a moment, it didn't feel like ash, it felt like memory. Her mother sat on the porch, legs tucked beneath her, humming a new tune. Not broken like before, but steady. Almost joyful. That scared Mary more than silence. The wind carried a strange scent. Palm oil, dust, and something faintly metallic. She looked up and noticed a line of ants circling her mother's chair, as if drawing a border around her. The radio crackled inside the house, though it had no batteries. Lucy hadn't called. Agnes hadn't stirred in days. Something was pressing in, folding time around itself. Mary grabbed the black book and the knife hidden beneath the floorboard. She had only one place left to go. The monastery was waiting. Its stones were warm, though the sun had set. Inside, the candles were already lit. Mary stepped into the circle, uninvited. Her mother stood in white at the center, face painted with red clay, eyes closed in rapture. Brother Ezra turned toward her, arms open, like he'd been expecting her. "You came home," he whispered. Mary said nothing. Her fingers clenched the book. "The first door was fire," Ezra said, "but this one is truth. Step forward, Mary. Let the gate remember you." She didn't move. A rumble started beneath her feet. The flames flickered in reverse, drawing shadows backward. Agnes appeared in the doorway, gaunt and trembling, her hands outstretched. "No," she screamed. "Don't let them take her." She stepped into the circle. Ezra barely flinched. The fire surged and swallowed her whole. Agnes vanished in the light. Mary's scream echoed through the stone walls. Her mother didn't even blink. Ezra approached, lifting the book from her hands as if it belonged to him. "You opened it. You carried the number. The gate is almost ready." But Mary had hidden something between the pages, a small bottle of oil and salt soaked in cloth, the last thing Agnes gave her. She snatched the book back, tore it open, and poured the oil across the names. Ezra lunged, but Mary struck the flintstone she had hidden in her sash. Flame roared up the spine of the book. Ezra howled, clutching his chest as if the fire was inside him. The circle cracked. The walls groaned. Mary ran to her mother, pulled her from the center, even as the ground began to buckle. They escaped through the corridor just as the roof collapsed in on itself, fire licking the stone like it remembered who built it. Outside, the air was still. Her mother clung to her, dazed, whispering nonsense. Mary held her close and didn't look back. The second door had closed. But deep in her spirit, something pulsed. Not a victory. Not peace. Just silence. The sound of sewing had returned to Mary's life like a slow, cautious friend. She sat at her wooden machine beneath the shade of an almond tree, stitching the hem of a new wrapper for a local bride. Her fingers moved methodically, fabric feeding gently under the needle's bite. Her mother slept more now, in longer stretches, and the humming had stopped entirely. The silence that followed wasn't peace, but it wasn't torment either. Just quiet. The village women had begun visiting her again, some with laughter, others with soft questions about the fire no one dared name. Mary answered little. She smiled where she could. When they left, she sat alone with her thoughts and stitched like she was sewing herself back together. Lucy had called 2 days earlier and said, "I saw the room again, but it was empty this time. I think it's finally over." Mary hadn't told her what she saw the night after the monastery burned. A small white butterfly flying from the fire, and vanishing into her mother's open palm. The knock came at dusk, gentle as rainfall. Mary wiped her hands and rose, pulling the door open with her hip. A girl stood there. Small. Maybe 9. Hair tied with a fraying white ribbon. Light brown skin, face clean, eyes wide and still. She didn't speak. Just held out a folded paper. Mary took it slowly. The girl turned and walked away barefoot, leaving no footprints in the dust. Inside, Mary unfolded the note. Her fingers stopped moving. It wasn't a note. It was a certificate. Faintly scorched at the edges, stamped with a golden seal still warm to the touch. On the top, one word, Heavenly Entry Certificate. Below it, the number, 2, her breath caught. Her name was faintly etched beneath the number, but then scribbled out. Someone else's had been written in its place. Just one word, pending. Mary sat down slowly, eyes locked on the paper. She flipped it over. Nothing. Then she looked again. In the bottom corner, nearly invisible, someone had scrawled a phrase in red, "The shepherd sleeps. The gate remembers." She stared at it until her eyes burned. Then she folded the paper, tucked it inside a cracked Bible she hadn't touched in months, and locked the drawer. Outside, the wind picked up. Far in the distance, she heard children laughing. One voice stood out, a girl's, faint and familiar. Mary closed her eyes, and for the first time since the fire, she whispered a prayer. Not for safety. Not for peace. Just for time. A little more time before the gate opened again. Dear viewers, what lessons did you grab from this thrilling story? Fire up the comment box. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated.